She said she'd marry me when we were teenagers. Everyone laughed. I did too. But for some reason, I never forgot. It wasn't a movie moment. There was no sunset, no music, no dramatic silence. We were 14, sitting on the cracked concrete steps behind our school gym, eating snacks from the vending machine because neither of us liked the cafeteria food. Her name was Emma. Back then, she wore her hair in messy ponytails that never stayed tight, and always had ink on her fingers from writing on her hands instead of notebooks. I remember that detail clearly. Not because it was important. Just because it was her. That day had been ordinary. Math test in the morning. Group project complaints. Someone had started a rumor about someone else and the whole hallway buzzed with it like that was the most important thing in the world. Emma sat beside me, swinging her legs like she had too much energy for her own body. "You're going to be rich one day," she said suddenly. I frowned at her. "Why?" "You explain things like a dad," she said. "That's not a reason." "It is," she insisted. "Dads who explain things calmly always have money in movies." I laughed. "That's your logic?" She nodded seriously. "Yes." Then she took a sip of her juice and added casually, like she was commenting on the weather, "If you become rich, I'll marry you." I almost choked on my drink. "You what?" She shrugged. "Why not? You're nice, and you helped me pass science." A couple of our classmates overheard and burst into laughter. "Ooh, Emma's planning her future." She rolled her eyes at them. "Relax, I'm not proposing. I'm planning ahead." I laughed too, because that's what you do at 14 when anything sounds remotely serious. "Deal," I said jokingly. "If I become rich." She grinned. "Good, then I don't have to worry about it." And that was it. No blushing. No meaningful pause. No destiny. Just two teenagers talking nonsense between classes. Still, the sentence stayed somewhere in my head. Not as a promise. More like a bookmark in a book I didn't know I'd reread. Life moved fast after that. High school ended. People changed. Friend groups dissolved quietly the way they always do. Emma and I weren't best friends. We were the kind of friends who shared jokes, homework answers, and occasional deep talks when life felt big for teenage hearts. Then graduation came. People took photos, signed yearbooks, said, "Keep in touch," like it was a real plan. I remember Emma hugging me quickly and saying, "Don't forget to become rich." I replied, "Don't forget your plan." She laughed and walked away to join her parents. That was the last time I saw her for a long while. Years passed the way they do when you're busy becoming someone. College, first jobs, bad haircuts. Learning that adulthood is mostly pretending you know what you're doing. I didn't become rich. Comfortable, maybe. Stable eventually, but not movie rich. Still, every once in a while, when someone joked about future plans or marriage or "Where do you see yourself in 10 years?" her voice would echo lightly in my memory. "If you become rich, I'll marry you." It never felt romantic, just oddly specific. Like a line from a song you don't love but always remember. One night, years later, I found an old box while helping my mother clean the garage. Inside were yearbooks, photos, small forgotten pieces of the past. I flipped through my high school yearbook with mild curiosity. Most messages were predictable. "Stay cool." "Don't change." "Good luck." Then I found hers. Emma's handwriting was messy, slanted, unmistakable. She had written, "You're going to do well in life. You actually listen to people. Don't lose that. And hey, if you end up rich, you know where to find me." I stared at it longer than expected. Not because it was romantic, because it was kind. She hadn't written about herself. She'd written about who she thought I was. That stayed with me. I wondered briefly where she was, if she still wrote on her hands, if she still made bold jokes like future plans were casual things. Then life moved again, and the thought faded, until the day I heard her laugh. Not in a memory, not in my head, in real life. I was standing in line at a small bookstore cafe downtown, half listening to the barista explain the difference between two roasts I didn't truly care about. Then I heard it. A light, familiar laugh. Something in my chest tightened before my brain caught up. I turned slightly. And there she was. Older, obviously. Hair shorter. Clothes more adult. But unmistakably, Emma. She stood near a shelf talking to an older woman, smiling in that same effortless way. For a second, I thought I might be wrong. That memory was just playing tricks. Then she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear the exact same way she used to when she was thinking. It was her. 10 years later. No warning. No dramatic setup. Just a random Tuesday. I didn't rush over. Didn't say her name. I just watched for a moment, surprised by how calm I felt. No fireworks. No cinematic music. Just quiet recognition. And then a strange thought crossed my mind. I wonder if she remembers what she said. Not because I expected anything. Just because some words are small when spoken and big when remembered. I paid for my coffee and left without talking to her. Not out of fear. Out of respect for the randomness of the moment. Some reunions deserve timing, not interruption. Still, as I walked out into the street, I realized something. Of all the people from my past I could have randomly met again, it was the one who made a promise she never meant, and the one I never forgot. Part 2. I told myself I wouldn't make it weird. That was my first promise to myself after seeing Emma again. Older, real, alive in the same city I was living in. As if 10 years hadn't happened and then suddenly had. I didn't go back inside. I didn't accidentally circle the block. I went home like a normal person, and then spent the rest of the evening thinking about a sentence from 9th grade like it was a riddle the universe wanted me to solve. If you become rich, I'll marry you. It wasn't even romantic. It had been a joke. A teenage line delivered with a grin and a juice box in her hand. But seeing her again made the memory feel sharper. Like I'd been carrying it quietly all these years without realizing the weight of it. Not the marriage part. The fact that she had said it at all. The fact that she had looked at me like I was someone worth planning around, even as a joke. I didn't know if she remembered. And I wasn't sure what I wanted if she did. I just knew the world felt slightly rearranged. 2 days later, I went back to the bookstore cafe. Not to see her, to get coffee. That's what I told myself, and technically it was true. The cafe was busy. The bookstore smelled like paper and cinnamon. I stood in line, scrolling emails, pretending my heart wasn't listening for her laugh. And then, of course, there she was again. This time she was alone, sitting at a small table by the window with a notebook open, writing something with the same old habit of pausing mid-sentence like she was listening to her own thoughts. Ink on her fingers. I smiled without meaning to. Okay. That was unfair. I ordered my drink and waited. I told myself I would leave. I had no plan, no smooth line, no reason to interrupt her life. Then she looked up. Her eyes scanned the room, and landed on me. For a second, I wasn't sure if she recognized me. Then her eyebrows lifted slightly, and she smiled. Not a polite smile, a real one. Like she'd opened a door in her mind and found an old memory standing there. Wait, she said, half to herself, then stood up slowly. Ethan? Hearing my name in her voice felt like stepping into a room I hadn't been in for years. I laughed softly. Yeah. She walked closer, her face brightening as if the last decade had been a long hallway, and we'd finally met at the end. Oh my God, she said, smiling wide. It is you. It is, I confirmed. Hi. Hi, she repeated, then laughed again. This is so random. Extremely, I agreed. She looked me over like she was checking for continuity. You look the same, but not. That might be the nicest insult I've ever received. She laughed. I didn't mean it as an insult. I mean, you still look like you'd explain things calmly. I blinked, and just like that, my brain dragged me back to those gym steps. Emma tilted her head. Are you in town for work? Or do you live here now? I live here, I said. Have for a while. Her eyes widened. Seriously? So we've been in the same city all this time? Apparently, I said. That feels illegal, she declared. Like the universe should have told us sooner. I smiled. I'll file a complaint. She laughed, then pointed at my coffee cup. Is that yours? Yeah, I said. Let me guess. she interrupted. Black, no sugar, because you always acted like sweet things were a distraction. I stared at her. How do you remember that? She shrugged with a playful smile. I remember things. I didn't say it out loud, but my chest warmed. So she did remember details. We stood there for a moment too long. Then Emma glanced at her table, then back at me. Do you have time to sit for a second? She asked, as if she was trying not to sound like she cared too much. I hesitated for half a breath, the kind of hesitation that used to be fear of awkwardness. Then I nodded. Yeah. We sat at her table by the window. It felt strangely familiar, even though we'd never sat like this as adults. Emma closed her notebook but didn't hide it. I noticed the neat handwriting, the margin notes, the small doodle of a star in the corner. Still Emma, just sharper around the edges. So, she said, folding her hands. How have you been? Like, really? That question always does something to me. It's so simple, but most people don't ask it like they mean it. I took a sip of coffee to buy time. I've been okay, I said. Busy. Stable. You? Emma leaned back in her chair. Also busy. Not stable. But, okay. Not stable? I asked gently. She made a face. Not in a sad way. In a life is weird and I'm still figuring it out way. I nodded. That sounds like adulthood. Exactly, she said, relieved. See? You still explain things like a dad. I laughed. Then she squinted at me as if she was about to ask something. Do you remember? She began, then stopped and shook her head. Never mind. My heart gave a small, quiet jump. Do you remember? That could mean anything. But I knew what my brain wanted it to mean. I tried to keep my voice calm. What? Emma waved her hand. It's stupid. I've heard you're stupid before, I said. It's usually not stupid. She blinked, then smiled slowly. Okay, fine. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. Do you remember when I told you I'd marry you? She whispered. There it was. The sentence that had lived in my brain like a tucked-away note. My throat went dry. I forced a laugh. Soft, not mocking. Yes. Emma's cheeks flushed lightly. She groaned and covered her face for half a second. I can't believe I said that, she mumbled. I was such a dramatic teenager. It was funny, I said honestly. It was embarrassing, she corrected, peeking through her fingers. And you're not allowed to tell anyone. I wouldn't, I said, smiling. It's safe with me. Emma sat up again, still smiling but also visibly relieved. Okay, she said. Good. Because sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. and remember it out of nowhere and want to time travel out of my body. I laughed, real this time. I didn't know time travel was an option. It is when shame is involved, she said. I was still smiling when she looked at me with curious eyes. So, she asked lightly, did you become rich? There was a playful challenge in her voice, but no expectation. Still, the question landed with a funny weight. I shook my head. No. Sorry to ruin your plan. Emma sighed dramatically. Ugh, my teenage self is devastated. Then she smiled again, warm and teasing. But, she added, I guess I can forgive you. I smiled, and my chest felt strangely full. Not because she'd forgiven me. Because she was still her. Still playful. Still kind. Still the kind of person who could turn an ordinary conversation into something that feels like home. A moment later, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted. Subtle tension. Then she looked back at me and softened it. Sorry, she said. Work stuff. No worries, I said. Emma tucked her phone away, then looked out the window like she was thinking. Can I admit something weird? She asked. Please do, I said. She smiled faintly. When I saw you 2 days ago, I almost didn't say hi. Why? I asked. Emma's eyes flicked to mine. Because I didn't want to ruin the memory. That hit me in the chest. I get that, I said quietly. Emma nodded slowly, like she appreciated that I understood without making it heavy. Then she brightened again, shaking off the seriousness. Okay, she said. Enough feelings. You want to walk for a bit? It's not raining, and I suddenly have the urge to prove the universe isn't completely irresponsible. I laughed. Sure. We stood up, grabbed our things and walked out together. And as we stepped onto the sidewalk, side by side, I realized something. Seeing her again wasn't just nostalgia. It was a doorway. And I had no idea what we were about to walk into. For 3. We walked without a destination, which, for me, is unusual. I'm the kind of person who likes plans, routes, purpose, a clear reason for moving from point A to point B. Emma walked like she trusted the sidewalk to lead somewhere interesting. "Do you always walk like you're escaping a meeting?" she asked, glancing at me. I blinked. "Do I?" "Yes," she said. "Your shoulders look like they're carrying a calendar." I laughed. That might be the most accurate insult I've ever heard. "It's not an insult," she insisted. "It's an observation. I'm a professional observer." "Of what?" "Of people who pretend they're fine," she said brightly, then pointed at a dog wearing a tiny raincoat. "Also of dogs who dress better than me." I followed her gaze and laughed. Something about being around her made my body relax in small, unexpected ways. We crossed the street and wandered toward the park. The air was cool, the lights soft, and for a moment it felt like the city was cooperating with the reunion just to be polite. Emma glanced at me. "So what do you do now?" I told her, project management, a job that sounds calm until you're living it. She listened the way she always used to, like she was actually trying to understand me, not just waiting for her turn to speak. "And you?" I asked. Emma made a face. "I'm in a weird in-between." "In between what?" I asked gently. She shrugged, hands in her coat pockets. "In between being proud of myself and feeling like I'm behind." That honesty landed quietly. I didn't try to fix it. I just nodded. "That's a real place to be." Emma exhaled like I'd taken a weight off her without lifting it. "Thank you," she murmured, then immediately pointed at a street musician nearby. "Okay, but tell me that man isn't singing like he's auditioning for Heartbreak." I laughed. "He's giving everything he has." "And I respect it," she said solemnly. "Even if it's slightly off-key." We reached the park and walked along the path. People passed us in couples and groups and solo speedwalkers who looked like they were angry at time. Emma slowed down near a bench overlooking a small pond. "You know what's funny?" she said, looking out at the water. "What?" "I used to imagine you as like a CEO, she admitted. I laughed. "A CEO?" "Yes," she said seriously. "You had CEO vibes, quiet, responsible, slightly disappointed in everyone." "Wow," I said. "Thank you?" "It's a compliment," she insisted. "I think. Mostly." I shook my head, still smiling. "And did you imagine yourself as my future spouse?" She groaned. "Don't. I'm just asking," I teased gently. Emma looked at me, eyes amused and slightly embarrassed. "Honestly? No. I imagined you as one of those people who ends up with someone perfect. Perfect. That word always feels suspicious to me." "Perfect how?" I asked. Emma shrugged. "Like polished, organized, someone who meal preps and doesn't cry in the shower." I laughed. "That's your definition of perfect?" "It's a strong definition," she said. "Cry in the shower people are unpredictable." I smiled, then looked at her. "And you?" Emma blinked. "What about me? Did you end up with someone perfect?" I asked. Her expression flickered, quick, quiet, controlled. Then she shrugged like it didn't matter. "No," she said lightly. "I ended up with a lot of learning experiences." I didn't push. But I noticed the way her hand tightened briefly around her tote strap. She was carrying something. Not dramatic, just real. Emma cleared her throat, changing the subject with practiced ease. "So," she said, "are you dating anyone?" I hesitated. Not because it was a painful question, because I realized I cared what she thought of the answer. "No," I said. "Not right now." Emma's eyebrows lifted. "Really? How is that possible?" I shrugged. "I've been busy." "That's not a reason," she said, echoing my 14-year-old words from the gym steps. I laughed. "It's my best one." Emma smiled, then looked away. "I'm not dating anyone either." The way she said it was casual, but her shoulders eased slightly afterward, as if admitting it out loud relieved her. We walked again, Quieter now. Not awkward. Just aware. After a minute, Emma said, "Can I tell you something without you making it serious?" "I'll try," I said. "I can't promise." She rolled her eyes affectionately. "Okay, serious man." Then her tone softened. "I'm glad you're not rich," she admitted. I blinked, surprised. "Why?" Emma smiled faintly. "Because if you were, I'd have to wonder if teenage me cursed me." I laughed. "That's fair." Then she added, quieter, "And because it means you're you. Not a version shaped by impressing people." That hit harder than I expected. I looked at her. "Emma." She waved a hand as if she'd said too much. "Ignore me. I'm having a moment." I smiled gently. "You can have a moment. I won't panic." Emma breathed out, relieved. We stopped near a small coffee cart. Emma bought hot chocolate, claiming she needed emotional warmth. I bought coffee because I'm predictable and apparently proud of it. As we stood there, Emma glanced at my cup and smiled. "You still do black coffee," she said softly, like it was proof of continuity. I nodded. "And you still carry notebooks." Emma patted her tote bag. "Some habits are loyal." We started walking back toward the bookstore area, and Emma's phone buzzed again. She checked it. This time she didn't hide her expression fast enough. Tension, frustration, worry. I slowed down. "Everything okay?" Emma inhaled, then forced a smile. "Yeah, just life." I studied her face. Then I made a choice. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. "Or do you want a break from it?" Emma blinked, caught. Then her eyes softened. "I want a break," she admitted. "Okay," I said. "Then we'll keep walking and pretend the world can wait." Emma laughed softly, and something in me warmed. We reached a corner where the path split, one direction toward the subway, the other toward a quieter street. Emma paused, shifting her tote bag. "I should go," she said. "I have a meeting later." "Okay," I replied, though I didn't like the thought of the reunion ending so soon. Emma bit her lip, like she was debating something. Then she said, "Do you want to do this again?" My chest tightened, not painfully, just warmly. "Yes," I said. "I do." Emma smiled, relief washing across her face. "Good," she said, "because this felt unexpectedly nice." I nodded. It did. She hesitated, then stepped closer and hugged me, quick, warm, real. It wasn't romantic, but it wasn't nothing either. When she pulled back, she smiled up at me and said lightly, "And just so you know, my teenage plan is still technically available." I laughed. "Even without the rich part?" Emma grinned. "I'm flexible now." Then she turned and walked toward the subway, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, smiling like an idiot, because something had shifted. The promise she'd made as a teenager wasn't a prophecy. But the way she made me feel right now, that felt like a beginning. Perfeito. Vamos para a parte 4. Aprofundando emoção, conexão, e preparando o terreno para o final quentinho. Part 4. After that day, Emma stopped being a memory. She became part of my present. Not in a dramatic, all-consuming way, in a quiet, steady way. We started texting occasionally. Not all day. Not every hour. Just small check-ins that felt human. "Hope your meeting didn't eat you alive. Your coffee today looked suspiciously strong. I saw someone writing on their hand and thought of you." Her replies were the same. Light, honest, a little playful. It felt easy. And easy is dangerous in the best way, because you don't notice how much you care until one day you do. About 3 weeks after our bookstore reunion, Emma invited me to a weekend street fair. "It has terrible live music and overpriced lemonade," she texted. "You'll love it." I almost said no out of habit. Weekends were for errands and recovering from work, but my thumbs typed sure before my brain could argue. We met near a row of food trucks. Emma wore a simple sweater and jeans, hair loose, looking comfortable in a way that made the whole scene feel warmer. "You came," she said, smiling like she was pleasantly surprised. "You invited me," I replied. "That hasn't stopped people before," she said. That line carried more history than she explained. We walked past handmade jewelry stands and local artists. Emma stopped to admire things the way some people do. Fully, not just glancing. She complimented a painter, thanked a vendor, laughed with a kid who was trying to win a stuffed animal. She noticed people. And watching her, I realized something quietly important. Teenage Emma had joked about marrying a future version of me. Adult Emma was someone people felt safe around. That mattered more than any promise. We ended up sitting on the curb with lemonade that cost more than it deserved. Emma took a sip and made a face. "This tastes like regret." "You paid for it," I reminded her. "That makes it worse," she said. I laughed, then glanced at her. She looked relaxed, but not completely. Like someone who carries responsibilities even on good days. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She nodded. "You can ask. I don't promise answers." "Fair," I said. "The other day, when your phone buzzed, you looked worried." Emma stared at her cup for a moment. Then she said carefully, "My sister's had a rough year." The way she said it was gentle but heavy. "Health?" I asked quietly. "Life," she replied. "Breakups, anxiety, job instability. I'm the default support system." I nodded slowly. "That's a lot to hold." Emma shrugged, but it wasn't dismissive. It was tired. "She's my sister," she said simply. "You don't really clock out from that." That sentence told me more about her than a long story would have. "You're good at showing up," I said. She smiled faintly. "I try." Then she looked at me and added, almost as a joke but not quite, "I think teenage me wanted to marry someone stable because I knew I'd be the chaotic one." I laughed. "You're not chaotic." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You don't see my brain at 2 a.m. "That's true," I admitted. She smiled, but her eyes softened. "And you?" she asked. "What do you carry that you don't talk about?" That question landed directly. I thought about giving a light answer. Instead, I said the truth. "I worry about doing life wrong," I admitted. "Like missing the important parts because I'm busy doing the responsible parts." Emma looked at me like she understood that immediately. "That's not doing it wrong," she said gently. "That's just being careful. Sometimes careful feels like hiding," I said. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know that feeling." We sat there quietly, the noise of the fair around us but not inside the conversation. Then Emma said something softly that stayed with me. "I think people spend years trying to be impressive and forget to be kind." I looked at her. "You didn't forget." She smiled lightly. "I'm still learning." Later, we walked away from the crowd toward a quieter street. The sun was lower, the air cooler. Emma seemed thoughtful. "Can I admit something?" she said. "Always." She hesitated. "When we reconnected," she said, "I thought it would just be a funny coincidence." "And now?" I asked. She looked at me, honest and unguarded. "Now it feels like timing," she said. That word carried weight. Not destiny, not fantasy. Timing. I liked that. Because timing feels real. We reached the corner where we'd say goodbye. Emma turned to me, studying my face like she was deciding something. "You know what's strange?" she said. "What?" "I don't feel like I have to perform around you." My chest warmed. "You don't," I said. "You never did." She smiled, relieved. Then she surprised me. She reached out and adjusted my jacket collar slightly. It was crooked and I hadn't noticed. The touch was small, natural, familiar. But it stayed. "Okay," she said softly. "I should go before I start canceling responsibilities." I nodded. "That's probably wise." She hugged me goodbye again. Warm, real, unhurried. As she pulled away, she said lightly, "You're still the kind of person teenage me would have picked." I laughed. "Even without the money?" Emma grinned. "Especially without it." Then she walked away. And I stood there realizing something that crept up quietly. This wasn't about a teenage joke anymore. It was about who we were becoming now. And for the first time, I wondered, not if she remembered the promise, but if we were writing a different one. There wasn't a big turning point. No dramatic confession. No rainy kiss. No grand gesture that makes strangers clap. If you're expecting that kind of story, ours would probably feel too quiet. But quiet doesn't mean small. Sometimes it means real. A few days after the street fair, Emma texted me late in the evening. Do you ever feel like life speeds up when you finally slow down? It was a very Emma message. Half question, half thought. I replied, yes. Why? Her answer came after a minute. I was thinking about how weird it is that we found each other again. It feels gentle. Gentle. That word fit what this had become. Not intense. Not overwhelming. Just two people noticing each other at the right time. A week later, we met again at the bookstore cafe, the accidental meeting place that now felt intentional. Emma arrived a little late, cheeks pink from the cold. I have a story, she announced, sitting down. That sounds serious, I said. It's not, she smiled. I found my old yearbooks at my mom's house. My heart did a small, quiet shift. Oh yeah? I said. Emma nodded. And I found yours in it. I blinked. Mine? You signed it, she said. You wrote, "You make stressful days lighter. Don't lose that." I had no memory of writing it, but it sounded like something I would have meant. Emma stirred her drink slowly. You were kind back then, she said. Not loud kind, just steady. I smiled faintly. You were bold back then. She laughed. I was ridiculous back then. Then she looked at me, eyes curious. Can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Did you really remember what I said? About marrying you? There it was. The question behind the story. I could have downplayed it. I didn't. Yes, I said simply. Emma's eyes widened slightly. You did? I nodded. Not as a plan, just as a memory. She studied my face like she was checking for exaggeration. Why? She asked softly. I thought about it for a second. Then I told the truth. Because it wasn't about marriage, I said. It was about the way you said it. She tilted her head. What do you mean? You said it like life was open, I explained. Like the future wasn't scary. Like good things were allowed to happen. Emma went quiet. Not awkward quiet. Thinking quiet. I forgot I used to be like that, she admitted. You're still like that, I said gently. Just more careful. She smiled at that. Small, grateful. We finished our drinks and stepped outside. The air was cold, but bright. Emma stood beside me on the sidewalk, looking thoughtful. You know something funny? She said. What? I don't want to marry a rich person anymore, I laughed. That's a relief. I'd hate to disappoint teenage you. She smiled, then added more quietly. I think I just wanted someone who felt safe. That landed deeper than a joke. I looked at her. Did you find that? Emma met my eyes. I'm figuring it out, she said. There was no pressure in the answer, no expectation, just honesty. We walked a little before parting ways. At the corner, Emma stopped. I'm glad we met again, she said. Me too, I replied. She hesitated for half a second, then hugged me. This hug was different, still gentle, but familiar now. Like two people who had built trust one conversation at a time. When she pulled back, she smiled that same warm smile from years ago. Just steadier. See you soon? She asked. Yeah, I said. Soon. She walked away, blending into the crowd like she had that first day. But this time, I didn't feel like something was unfinished. I felt like something had begun quietly. That night, I thought about the promise again. Not the words, the meaning. At 14, she'd joked about marrying a future version of me. At 24, we were just two people learning how to show up for life without pretending. Maybe nothing big comes from this. Maybe it becomes love. Maybe it becomes a chapter. Maybe it simply becomes a reminder. But I know this. Some people enter your life loudly. Others arrive like a sentence you almost forget, until life brings it back at the right time. She said it as a teen without meaning it. I never forgot. Not because it was a promise, but because it was her. And sometimes that's enough to begin something real.